Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dark Phoenix Gaming, and welcome back to yet another installment in Dark Phoenix Reads Codex entries in Dragon Age Origins. Because we managed to accumulate rather a lot of them, so this is like the third fucking episode of me reading Codex entries. Not even kidding. If you've not been keeping up, then yes, this is a thing. I will be reading them on camera, except for the extremely obvious ones, like wolf or bear, which I skip. Also not really providing context or my opinion or anything. I'm just reading them so that they're in audio form if people want to hear about stuff like this, but don't particularly want to have to read it for themselves. Anyways, we have one section left, characters, which has 24 entries in it. So this is probably going to take a while. The last two were basically about an hour each of just reading Codex entries after all. So, yeah. Alistair. You know, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together. Alistair was a novice Templar when Duncan recruited him into the Grey Wardens, or rescued him, as Alistair would say. The Arl's wife, Isolde, suspected the reason her husband took an interest in the welfare of a servant's child was that Alistair was Eamon's son. She insisted the boy be sent away to the Chantry. Alistair is fascinated by magic, even as his life is defined by fighting its darker manifestations. He has a fondness for strange runestones and figural studies of arcane creatures. Does he now? Queen Honora. We have been given the gift of freedom by our forebears. Let us not squander it. The only child of war hero Logain MacTyr, Honora has never been one to stay quietly in the background. It is common knowledge that in the 5 years Honora and Kaelin held the throne together, she was the one wielding the power. She is held in much higher esteem than her husband by the people of Ferelden, nobility and commoners alike, and commands the respect even of foreign nations. Having once inspired Empress Selene of Orlais to declare, Honora of Ferelden is a solitary rose among brambles. Balin Iduken. This is the time for action, not cultured debate. Third of King Entrin's children, Balin has always been considered the last and least of his family. Not the heir, nor the favorite, and not as accomplished as either sibling. Balin's most notable trait was his ability to stay out of trouble. King Kaelin Theron. I'd hoped for a war like in the tales, the king riding with the fabled Grey Wardens against a tainted god. Son of the legendary King Merrick Theron, Kaelin was the first Ferelden king, born into a land free from foreign rule in 2 generations. Since his father's death, he's held the throne alongside his queen Honora. He fell in battle alongside Duncan at Ostagar. Sir Cawthron. Some of us know what honor and loyalty are. Cawthron came to Logain's service the hard way. She belonged to a poor family and was out doing work on a farm when she saw a man on horseback being attacked by several bandits. She rushed to his assistance and found out belatedly that the man she saved was none other than the great hero Logain. Though she was hardly more than a child, he took her in, offering her a position with his soldiers, and she climbed through the ranks through sheer determination. Becoming the commander of Merrick's Shield, Logain's elite soldiers, was the proudest moment of her life. Sparrow. The Mubari is clever enough to speak and wise enough to know not to. Ferelden proverb. Arianne found this Mubari in the camp at Ostgar. His master was killed in the wilds, and Sparrow fell ill from biting the Darkspawn in battle. Sparrow seems to have chosen Arianne as his new master now, seeking Arianne out after the battle at Ostagar and warning of an impending Darkspawn attack. Duncan. men and women from every race, warriors and mages, barbarians and kings. And the Grey Wardens sacrificed everything to stem the tide of darkness, and prevailed. Like many others, Duncan gave up his family name when he joined the ranks of the Wardens. A symbolic gesture of cutting ties. You might say this was a convenience in his case, however. His mother was from the Anderfells, his father from Tevinter. His childhood was spent in the Free Marches and Orlais. His people were everywhere and his homeland was nowhere. He was given the almost impossible task of leading the Wardens in Ferelden, a kingdom that had thrown the Order out 200 years earlier. Facing local suspicion and hostility, he set about finding recruits. He was killed in battle against overwhelming numbers of Darkspawn at Ostagar alongside King Cailan. Nobility does not exist without obligation. Arleman Gweren. We owe all we have, even our lives, to our land and our people. As the maternal uncle of King Cailan, Arleman is one of the king's most trusted advisors. Redcliffe, while not a large or especially wealthy part of Ferelden, is a critical strategic location. The fortress guards the western pass that leads to Orlais, as well as the major trade route with Orzammar. A well-respected man, though not the most charismatic. King Cailan once said of him, "My uncle Eamon is a man everyone thinks well of when they remember to think of him at all." He fell ill with a mysterious condition that even magic could not treat. King Endrin Iduken. Denial of the traditions of our people does not qualify as a political technicality. Endrin of House Iduken traces his ancestry back to the Paragon Iduken, the greatest warrior of Orzammar's history, who beat back the Darkspawn hordes in the First Blight. The second son of King Angsgar Iduken, he became heir after his elder brother died in a proving. The most respected king in 4 generations, he restored contact with Kal Shirok, the only other remaining city of the once vast Dwarven Empire, which had been lost during the First Blight. Flemeth. You are required to do nothing, least of all believe. Ages ago, legend says Ban Conabar took to wife a beautiful young woman who harbored a secret talent for magic, Flemeth of Highever, and for a time they lived happily until the arrival of a young poet Ozin, who captured the lady's heart with his verse. They turned to the Chasen tribes for help and hid from Conabar's wrath in the wilds, until word came to them that Conabar lay dying. His last wish was to see Flemeth's face one final time. The lovers returned, but it was a trap. Conabar killed Ozin and imprisoned Flemeth in the highest tower of the castle. In grief and rage, Flemeth worked a spell to summon a spirit into this world to wreak vengeance upon her husband. Vengeance she received, but not as she planned. The spirit took possession of her, turning Flemeth into an abomination. A twisted, maddened creature, she slaughtered Conabar and all his men, and fled back into the wilds. For 100 years Flemeth plotted, stealing men from the Chasen to sire monstrous daughters, horrific things that could kill a man with fear. These Korkari witches led an army of Chasen from the wilds to strike at the Alamari tribes. They were defeated by the hero Cormac, and all the witches burned, so they say. But even now, the Wilders whisper that Flemeth lives on in the marsh, and she and her daughter steal those men who come too near. Morrigan's mother saved the last Grey Wardens from death at the top of the Tower of Ishal. Just who or what Flemeth truly is a mystery. Like Commander Gregor. It is the innocent folk of Ferelden who matter. I would lay down my life and the life of any mage to protect them. Grim and taciturn, Gregor has been Knight Commander of the Templar forces stationed at the Circle Tower for so many years that hardly anyone except the first enchanter recalls that he is not simply part of the tower itself. Lord Pyral Harrowmont. No one is born with the rights to the throne. The sitting king may recommend a successor, but the assembly ultimately decides who will rule. House Harrowmont is one of the oldest noble houses, as old as Orzammar itself. Endrin's most trusted advisor, Harrowmont is well known for being an administrator and the author of many compromises in the ever-warring assembly. Auril Rendon Howe. It appears it will be civil war after all, despite the Darkspawn. Pity. The Arling of Amaranthine winds along the sinuous northeastern coast of Ferelden. The waking sea is known for its temper, and the storms that sweep in from the warmer northern waters are sudden and brutal. These are the lands of Rendon Howe. He was born during the occupation and, like many of the nobles at the time, joined Prince Merrick's rebels. He fought alongside young Bryce Cousland, future Terran of Highever, and Leonis Bryland, future Arl of Southreach, at the bloody Battle of White River. It was the most catastrophic defeat of the entire occupation, from which only 50 rebel soldiers escaped alive. Although he was decorated for valor by King Merrick, Howe's abrasive manners have earned him almost universal dislike among his peers. First Enchanter Irving. The circle will go on, and we will learn from this tragedy and be strengthened by it. There is no higher office in a Circle Tower than that of First Enchanter. The one who holds this title must not only be an able administrator, but also a mentor, leader, and surrogate parent to all the mages of the tower. Irving has proven himself to be all these things with an added dose of cunning. Most apprentices know that little goes on in the tower that Irving does not know. He can soothe Templars angered by some childish magical prank. At the same time, he lauds the pranksters and everyone walks away satisfied. Although much of the circle was destroyed by Uldred's abominations, Irving survived and plans to rebuild what he can. Liliana. In the cloister, away from the fuss and the flurry of the cities, I found peace, and in that stillness I could hear the Maker. A lay sister of the Chantry who can beat the stuffing out of trained mercenaries would be notable enough, but one who also claims to have been sent to fight the Darkspawn by the Maker himself is unusual, to say the least. She joined Alistair and Arianne in Lothering, insisting she would prove useful. Loghain. Understand this. I will brook no threat to this nation from you or anyone. Loghain was born a farmer during a time when his country was under foreign occupation. When he was still a boy, he joined the Resistance, where his considerable tactical genius quickly became apparent. He became close friends with Prince Merrick, the last true heir to the Ferelden throne, and together they led the rebels to drive out the forces of the Orlesian Empire. Merrick raised his friend to nobility, and Loghain is now more a symbol than a man. He represents the Ferelden ideals of hard work and independence. During the battle at Ostigard, he fled the field, leaving King Cailan and the Grey Wardens to die. He then returned to Denerim and declared himself the regent to his daughter Queen Honora, demanding that Ferelden follow him against the Darkspawn, upsetting a great many of the bands. His actions sparked a civil war. Loghain's supporters found themselves fighting their neighbors, who blamed Loghain for the death of the king, as well as those who simply wished to take advantage of the power vacuum. Morrigan. Witch of the Wilds. Such idle fancies, those legends. Have you no minds of your own? Of herself, Morrigan says little. She does not deny being a witch of the wild, but beyond that, everything about her is in question. Her mother claims to be Flemeth. If that's true, then Morrigan might, well, be a very powerful witch, for the tales of the daughters of Flemeth tell of twisted, monstrous women who can kill a man with fear. She is made to accompany the surviving Grey Wardens, the payment, Flemeth said, for saving their lives at the Tower of his Shawl. Morrigan's critical eye is not reserved solely for others. Knowing or not, she has a simple fondness for jewelry and is very particular about her appearance. Sten. Either you have an enviable memory or a pitiable life to know nothing of regret. The Northern Islands are remote, lush jungles that harbor cities rumored to be the most extraordinary ever built. These are the lands of the Kunari, lands that no foreign eyes ever see. Only the stories of 3 exalted marches waged against the giants have reached the south, until the arrival of Sten. The stoic giant in the cage was surely the strangest thing the people of Lothering had ever seen, until the blight struck. He was sent with a small group of Kunari soldiers to investigate the blight and report back. Outside Lothering, they were ambushed by Darkspawn. They fought off the attack, but only Sten survived. Farmers found him dying and took him in. When he awoke, alone and unarmed, he panicked, killing the entire family. Realizing he had sacrificed his honor, Sten waited for the villagers to come and surrendered, expecting death. Sten has an eye for paintings, an appreciation that might seem out of character, but is actually an extension of the Kunari discipline. Respects an artist for careful composition, a skill that is as much about where the brushstroke stops as where it begins. Ban Tegan Gweren. The Banorn will not bow to you simply because you demand it. Younger brother to Arleman of Redcliffe and uncle to King Caelan, Tegan holds the Banorn of Rainsfair, a tiny province of Redcliffe squeezed between the Frostback Mountains and Lake Calenhad. Ban Tegan avoids the Denerim court except to go hunting with his nephew, and rarely makes himself heard at the landsmeet, preferring to leave politics to his brother. Valendrian. Remember that our strength lies in commitment to tradition and to each other. Every alienage has a Haren, an elder. It falls to the Haren to arrange marriages for those without family, to negotiate with the guards when there's trouble, to act as a sort of mayor and surrogate uncle to the people of the alienage. The title, like so many things, is a holdover from the time of Arlathan, for Harens are not necessarily the oldest person in their community, or even all that old. Tradition gives the role to the oldest soul, the wisest, cleverest, and most level-headed. Valendrian has been Haren of the Denerim alienage since he was in his 30s. Win. I will not lie motionless in bed with coverlets up to my chin, waiting for death to claim me. Win's talent became apparent early on, particularly her skill at healing magic. She was well liked by all her mentors and was recognized as an exceptionally gifted student. Even the Templars who watched her could not deny that she represented the best the Circle had to offer. She was an intelligent young woman who possessed a quiet confidence and maturity beyond her years. She spent many years mentoring apprentices within the Circle, and her peers thought so highly of her that she was asked to be First Enchanter Irving's successor. But she refused, saying she had no desire to work in the upper echelons. When word reached the tower of King Caelan's call to arms, Wynn volunteered to go to Ostagar. Zevran Arani. The crows send their regards. Between the Tevinter Imperium, Ravane, and the Free Marches sits the nation of Antiva. Although it possesses few resources of its own, Antiva's location makes it a center for trade in the north, and the capital, Antiva City, is the wealthiest in the world. Antiva has virtually no army. The monarchy is too weak to support one. Most Antivans would be hard-pressed to even name the current king, as true power lies in the hands of a dozen merchant princes, each with a personal army and each locked in a constant struggle for power against all the others. Anyone would think, then, that Antiva would be a ripe target for invasion by one of her neighbors, but even the Kunari leave Antiva alone, for one very good reason: the House of Crows. The most efficient, most feared, and most expensive guild of assassins in the world calls Antiva their home, and their reputation alone defends the borders. Zevran was the crow contracted by Loghain to assassinate Alistair and Arianne. One failed attempt later, however, he found himself at the mercy of his would-be victims. They showed him unexpected mercy, and in return he swore to aid the Wardens on their quest to end the Blight. Sophia Dryden. Sophia Dryden is Ferelden's light and her most brilliant jewel. Nothing on this earth can ever quench her fire. Arlessa Sophia Dryden was the young Arlen's rival for the throne of Ferelden. Dryden was a strong and charismatic leader with much support from the Banorn. When Arlen finally won the crown, Dryden refused to relent. She pushed her claim, was caught and accused of treason. Her sympathizers continued to support her, however. In order to appease them, Dryden was spared execution and forced to join the Grey Wardens instead. Dryden survived the joining and dazzled the Grey Wardens at Soldier's Peak with her leadership skills and charm. She eventually rose through the ranks to become the Warden Commander of Ferelden. Before Commander Dryden, the Grey Wardens were seen as a relic of an older time, and an unnecessary drain on the nobles' coffers. Dryden, though, with her political connections, reinvigorated the Wardens and rapidly increased their numbers. In the meantime, King Arland proved himself a devious king willing to go to brutal lengths to silence his opponents. Arlen's reign of terror grew worse with each passing year, and some of the bands approached Commander Dryden in desperation, begging her to intercede. She agreed, and thus the rebellion against King Arland was born. Arland learned of the rebellion and took steps to end it. He publicly suspended all tithing to the Grey Wardens and declared that they were no longer welcome in Ferelden. Some of the Wardens, mindful that they were supposed to remain politically neutral, felt disgraced by Dryden's involvement in Ferelden politics and left her side, even as the king's forces laid siege to Soldier's Peak. The siege took months and ended with the death of Sophia Dryden. From the personal files of Levi Dryden, merchant. Sir Roland Gilmore. I can't wait to put my sword to good use now that Ferelden needs us more than ever. Sir Roland Gilmore is a knight of high effort. He was to become a Grey Warden. Before he arrived to Lothering, he had the task of defending the castle while the lords marched into Ostagar to fight the Blight. However, the dawn before marching, Harl Howe betrayed the lord of the castle and attacked Highever. Roland chose to follow his duty as a knight over becoming a Grey Warden and fought the invaders for as long as he could. Despite his best efforts, the castle fell into the hands of the betrayer and he was captured along with the other guards and held prisoner for days until he was able to escape. Roland made his way to Ostagar, but finding the place in ruins after the battle, He followed the lines of wounded soldiers and refugees to Lothering. When next you found him, he wasn't sure what to do. And that is officially all of the Codex entries we have right now. So, when you join us next time, we'll be getting back to actually playing the game rather than just reading Codex entries. Which, as interesting as it undoubtedly is, to some people, I'm sure some of you are getting bored with it. So yes, we will actually play the game next time rather than just reading. Well, this has been Dark Phoenix Gaming. You have been watching Dragon Age Origins. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.